going to start this interview sitting in a structure that we built in memory of my education red-tailed hawk, who I had for 22 years. He came to me as a baby. He was found floating in the river during the '93 flood, and a man trying to save his pigs got him out of the water, and he was brought to me, and he was injured, and therefore he became a permanent bird, an education bird, put in my permit. And so that leads me into, I hold permits, federal and state permits, in order to have birds, any kind of a bird that is protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. And that's an act that protects all bird species that are native to the United States. There are only two species that are not protected, and that's the house sparrow and the European starling. They were brought here in the late 1800s. A man thought it would be nice to bring all the birds that were mentioned in Shakespeare's plays. And so those two birds were introduced into the United States before there were any laws about that. That would be really illegal now under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act to do that. So I hold those permits, and I work mainly with raptors. Now, you know what a raptor is, right? A raptor is a bird of prey. And the word raptor means to seize and tear. So in order to have raptors, I have to have certain facilities to hold those birds of different sizes. I have to be able to feed them their natural food. Well, you can't have natural food, really, but you can have species that are related. For instance, I purchase extra large mice and 3-day-old chicks to feed to the raptors, as close to the kind of food that they would be finding in the wild. I'm a volunteer in the state of Iowa. Rehabilitators are not paid. They have to fund their own facility. In some states, they get a stipend, but not in Iowa. We do have to report every year to both the federal people and the state people what birds have come through our facilities. Now, if you were a mammal rehabilitator, you only have to hold a state permit. The federal people are not involved with mammals unless you're working with endangered species. And we really don't have tigers, bear in the state of Iowa. They're protected in the state of Iowa. For you at home, then when you call me about when you have found a bird, or if a wildlife biologist has found a bird, or someone out in the public, you call me. You now can call Scott Kent at the Conservation Board, and he also will help you because he also is permitted under those permits, same permits as I have. I also have permits to have education birds. And on my federal and state permit, I have barred owls, red-tailed hawks, screech owls, barn owls, and kestrels on my permit. At the present, I only have a barred owl and a barn owl on my permits. These birds have to be used for education. They're not pets. I am one of the few rehabilitators in the state who do not name their education birds, mainly because I want you to remember that you're looking at a barred owl and not an owl that has a cute name. The cute name you might remember and not remember that you were looking at a barred owl. So in my mind, that's part of my education, is to show to you what we have and not some cute pet, because they are not pets. You will meet them later. I also hold a permit to ban birds. I have a permit to ban all birds in the state of Iowa. And what I mean by banding is that there are silver bracelets that are given by the federal government, and they have a number on them. And each bird species that's native to this country has been measured for a size of band. So I know when I'm banding a bluebird, for instance, that I need a 1B size band. And all of these bands have a number on it, and inside of each band is an address where the band can be reported to if found by the public. So that's another responsibility that you have. That if, for instance, if a bird hit your window at home and you went out to look at it and it had not survived hitting your window, but it had a silver band on its leg, then you can remove that silver band and write a note to the address that's on the inside of the band and tell them where you're located and what happened to the bird. If the bird is still alive, of course, you may not remove the band. In that case, you would write down the number on the band and call the conservation board, call me, call the library for the address to send this information to. The reason this is important is that you become a scientist when you do this. You become a scientist because you're helping other scientists who want to study a certain bird species to find out where they're located, perhaps where, and then they will track them to see about the population of that bird species or where that bird species migrates to. Because there are banding stations clear across this whole hemisphere. Because so many of our birds migrate to Central America, there are banding stations from northern Canada clear way down to the very tip of South America. And so those banders in those areas quite often capture the migrating birds in their nets, because we set up long nets and the birds fly into them because they can't see them, and then the banders take the birds out and band them. when I release birds that have been injured here, I quite often ban them so that if they're found, then we have a way to know how successful that rehabilitation was for that particular bird species.